If you like what you hear,
subscribe and follow us on Twitter at WTAE Podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. This is Worth the Admission Podcast. I am B. Frank.
And I'm Travis. You know what? It feels weird that you're in the same room. But it still feels weird. You know, like recording stuff, like it just feels weird because it's like the delay that we don't have anymore, and it's weird to see, like, instead of you holding the hand sign to stop, there's no hand sign anymore. Like,
now I can just slap you in the face.
We made it happen though.
Yeah,
I was.
It only took 6 months.
Well, what do you think? Well, we started the podcast in December.
Yeah, so November, December.
And then we talked about it in October, or we started. There was inner workings late part of October, early November, but I didn't think it was going to take that long. I thought it was going to take longer. I thought, if we, maybe we can have an idea by the first of the year, and then start out after that, we'll be fine. And
we were such novices too, because we, like the whole outline and.
We were way too on the line.
I mean, my craziness kind of.
Well, both our crazinesses, but it was like it has to be like this, and now. Those are the worst episodes. I mean, if you think about it, they were the worst episodes.
Oh, God. I don't even want to hear our first episode.
I don't.
That whole Skype call editing.
No one having a microphone. It was all sorts of bad. But in a way, it feels better now. It feels better now that we're doing this. Like, just feels... And, it feels natural because it's hard to create that magic or have that ability to start and stop with somebody when... you're so far away because it's hard sometimes. We have connection issues, as we've had in the past, where it takes 3 hours to do a 45-minute podcast because there's the cut down time and there's the pre-show and everything else that goes along with it. But it's tough, it really is. But
it's also hard to kind of have and maintain a level of energy
throughout
the entire thing.
Well, and you got to think too. The podcasting we do, whether people like it or don't like it, or however many people listen to it.
All our 9 people.
I know. Well, I appreciate all those 9 people. But it's one of those where it's hard to... We take big chunks, like with Game of Thrones and with, True Detective, and we take a lot of big swings. You're like, hey, you know what? We're just going to follow a whole season, and we're going to, dissect it like crazy. But it worked, because I thought Game of Thrones was more interesting, whether you liked it, you didn't like it, because I liked it. I didn't... There's things about the ending I don't think everybody liked, but for the most part, it's a lot.
I suppose that's good compromise, in the words of Tyrion.
But it is a good compromise. We were lucky we're having this conversation on the way to get food today. It was the same thing where I hated certain final seasons of shows, like that 70 show. I hated the finale, or the final season, but I liked the finale. I love the finale. It's probably one of my favorite finales, because they wrap it up in the 70s still.
And then you have How I Met Your Mother, which the last 2 episodes don't exist, like Spider-Man 3.
It didn't... I hated that. That ruined it. That wasn't a full circle moment. That was... You could have done this halfway through or partway through in the first season and let us know and let us love that relationship instead of at the end going, I'm okay with it not happening. Oh, wait, it really did happen? I'll get out of here. And that's what ruined it to me. But you loved How I Met Your Mother so much more than I did. I enjoyed it, but that ending, I won't watch it. I'll watch it if it's on TV, but I can't sit down and be like, I really love this show, because that's the problem with a show like this. Actually, I'll get into that in a second, but a show like How I Met Your Mother, when it ended, just like what else ended? Big Bang Theory. I didn't know anything about that.
I haven't had a chance to watch the finale yet because VDC.
I only know one spoiler, but I won't say anything. You probably already know what it is.
I don't. I've actually stayed pretty far away. I've heard there it's kind of a tearjerker, which I would kind of expect it.
Yeah. But let's get back to Game of Thrones, because currently we have it on, watching it together. The series finale.
What did you think? What did you think of what did you think of the whole episode and how it transformed from the beginning of the season?
Oh, take the first scene. Take the very, very first scene that you see with everybody walking into Winterfell. And it's kind of like that warm welcome of, hey, everybody's here. Look at where we're at now. And that's just 6 short episodes. But I think people forget, an hour, hour 20, hour 15, hour 20.
It did progress.
It got a lot longer. Obviously, we saw the battle, in the third episode where we saw the battle with the White Walkers. We had all that craziness happen, and we had the battle in the fifth episode, and then we had what really wasn't a battle. I wasn't upset that Daenerys or the Dragon didn't hit Jon with fire, which I would have liked, like you said.
Yeah.
But I thought would have been cool. What this show does, and I thought people overlook this, I want to go back and watch now. I want to catch those references. Like, there's one that I saw in the very, very first scene, which I don't know if is, I just read it as hearsay, but when Ned Stark executes that man in the very, very first scene, and he says his,
whoever swings the hammer.
Yeah, I am the king. And then it shows Bran in that same episode when he says, "Don't look away," right before in that scene. It's just small things like that, where that camera play in the 10 minutes into that first episode may not have been the biggest thing, but you look back, it was such big foreshadowing further on, and that may have just been a coincidence. But all the little things that happened in that final episode, as me who wasn't able to catch up, I really liked it that now, okay, I know this happened in season 3, episode 3, or season 4, episode 8, or, just these big, not the big moments like the Red Wedding, it's nothing
the really big memorable ones.
Yeah, it's nothing along those lines. I'm talking like, oh, cool, this callback moment, or, actually, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It wasn't the first scene in the very first episode of Game of Thrones. That's where they walk in. That's the last one. But about 10 minutes in is when that takes place. But it was it's in that first 10, 15 minutes of the show where you're trying to figure out who these people are, and they're giving you answers right there for the finale. I think it worked in a TV sense. People didn't like it, but they gave you the heel turn. They gave you that holy shit moment in episode 5. I expected this to be more of a wrap up. I just felt Game of Thrones felt more like a traditional TV show, as in how it wrapped up the character lines and kind of left some open and for interpretation.
Or for spin-offs.
This wasn't anywhere near as bad as like a Sopranos, because I know people didn't like just the blackout. I thought it did make sense, because from his point of view, that's all he would see. That's it. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. But for this, did I like where all the characters went? It's one of those, like with Jon Snow's character. Yes, does he kill Daenerys? Yes, he's going to take the Iron Throne. No, he gets punished and banished away. And, and that...
But at the same time, that's kind of where he feels at home.
Yeah, and it was fitting. And so it was one of those where in the moment you go, oh, I don't like that. Just like at the end of True Detective. When you see him, you see Mahershala Ali's character get
so close.
Get to her, and then just forget. And that, for me, was great. I like that season finale. I know it's not a series finale, but I like that because it was so close yet so far, and it wrapped up the story. This, I just thought, was what AMC would have done. This is not what HBO would have done. I think where it was still good, but I think too many people are hypocritical. It was the same thing we got with Breaking Bad, with everybody jumped on that bandwagon, and I loved Breaking Bad from episode 1. I absolutely loved it. I watched it on.
I remember you telling me every week.
I loved watching it every week, but I enjoyed that. Versus where we're at now with like a Game of Thrones, where it's just so much more massive. I mean, on a global scale, it's a lot bigger than Breaking Bad.
I think it broke its own previous 3 records at 19.3 or 19.4 million viewers, which means all of the people who were still pissed off and are like, I'm not going to watch Game of Thrones ever again, still watched it.
Didn't care.
Or they got enough new people that it didn't really matter.
It was one of those where I could tell right away that this wasn't going to end how we thought it was. Mm-hmm. Like when Daenerys dies, I would have liked to see that at the hour mark. If I was gonna build a show, I would have had that big mark, and I would have had the fallout happen for that first hour, and then we quickly start wrapping up the stories that last 20 minutes. That's how it should be. Where that big moment, yes, it did play out through the rest of that episode, so it did have to play out quicker. But to me, I thought they just filled a lot for the first 10-15 minutes with Tyrion walking around. And yes, it was a bummer that you saw, it was very heavily emotional when he's pulling off the rocks and stuff like that. He sees Jaime's hand, and then he sees Cersei. I mean, that is a bummer.
And if they would have just moved 10 feet to the side, apparently they would have been okay.
They were standing.
Yeah.
Originally, they would have been fine. Yeah, I know. Which is what I actually had originally thought when I was watching it in the scene, it kind of makes that quick flashback to where they fall, and I was like, or when they're standing there, I was like, wait, they're still alive? Because I thought it was, we only saw them just the fall. We never saw the aftermath.
The actual die.
Yeah. And you never know when you see the metal hand. Is that just the hand? Because it can come off.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just sitting there? So overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the entire series as a whole. I think it's I've always looked at it like this. With the fanfare and what we have, it was a show 5 years ago would have been on Sci-Fi. I truly believe that. 5 years prior to it going on, I guarantee you it would have been a Sci-Fi show that would have lived 2 years and it would have been canceled. Maybe people would have liked it because it was an adaptation, but I don't think it was good enough at that time 5 years ago for Netflix, and they weren't expanding like they were. Their original content was so very. This is like the 4 shows that we have. Mm-hmm. I mean, even back then it was all the massive shows. We didn't have these 15 shows that I didn't know anything about that just happened to be up there with great actors in it. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed that. What did you hear my side? What did you think? Because to me, you were the one who were like, let's do this. And I was like, well, let's do this. You know, I vaguely remember I've watched everything, but I haven't kept up with it the way that you have. So I know there's a lot of callbacks and things like that are very interesting.
Well, one thing that I saw online after watching it was a shot of the very first scene, like the first seconds and the last seconds of the show, and both are men going north of the wall.
Yeah, which I thought was cool.
That was pretty cool. I think for what we got, I am satisfied. Everything, even though it's not necessarily Jon sitting on the throne, Danny sitting on the throne, it still is satisfying in a way. Like, it is bittersweet, like Martin said it would be, because yes, everybody wanted Danny or Jon on the throne,
but they didn't want to give it to us either, though. That's at the same time.
At the end of the day, it's Game of Thrones.
But that's what I love, though, is the fact that we all thought Jon or Daenerys. We thought, okay, these two are going to clash their heads. And it's great that I love that Bran the Broken got it. But
yeah, it makes complete sense.
But at the same time, too, we all kind of figured that in the beginning. We thought, wait, these two obviously have had their pinnacle moments. She had her pinnacle moment as a character, her arc ended in the last episode. Mm-hmm. What she does from here on out, we knew was going to play a significant factor, but I think we all kind of thought at this point, or at least that I thought, is
she's going to die.
She had played her role. She had made the heel turn, or the wrestling term a heel turn. She made her evil turn, and I thought, well, this is as far as it makes, because like any kind of horror movie or any kind of just entertainment in general, when someone has their peak moment before we get to the end, you know they're not going to make it all the way. And especially this may not have been a horror movie. It still had more death than a regular zombie movie would. Or at least you saw more.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wish, and I have a feeling it will be different kind of in this way. A lot of this season, after episode 3, The Long Night, I felt if I looked at the season like a book, episode 3 would have probably been chapter 35, and chapter 45 would have been the final moments and Jon killing Danny and stuff. So I think with it being 3 episodes prior, it just felt like, the whole time I was expecting White Walkers to come back in some fashion. And I would have really liked to see the Night King, Danny, Cersei, and Jon in the Red Keep, like basically coming down to that final moment instead of it just being Danny and Jon.
Well, the way they, or at least I can't say the way they've done it, I've interpreted it as it's almost been like a rat race. Who's going to carry that? Who's going to scratch and claw? Who's going to make that move? Who's going to backstab that one person that's going to get them that far ahead? And I didn't get that. I didn't get the ruthlessness. And though I thought we got a lot bits and pieces of it throughout the season, I think the ruthless aggression that we would get. I mean, with like the Red Wedding, it was just a massacre. And they made it feel so big and above. And when you look at episode 3 and you look how dark it was and how hard it was to see, and I understand, well, we meant for it to be dark. Well, there's also dragons flying, so we can't lighten it a little bit. I mean, I know we said we weren't going to talk about it, but it's that point where in like episode 5 where everything was so bright. They overexposed everything. You could see everything. I could see 3 blocks over as I saw the guy get his head chopped off. It was... there wasn't that consistency, but even in those battle sequences, I thought they were great battle sequences, but I thought they missed a little something. I felt more in episode 3, the peril that everybody was in, but the magic kind of disappeared for me when everybody lived.
Yeah, and I think if more people would have died.
I thought if you could...
More main characters.
You have some B characters die there. You have a couple of A characters die in episode 5. That makes what happens in episode 6 so. It's we're here. We're at the end.
There's a stronger emotional connection
to it. There's motivation to it, though. It was, to me, it's like letting all of the air out of the balloon after episode 3. It was like this great battle sequences, and we felt like we weren't going to win, and then we magically won, and it was like, well, we've got nothing left. And I kind of feel like the gas tank ran out there. The character development was still there, but I feel we ran on E, ran on E. We're at 0, and now we ran out right as we turned that last block. And that's kind of how I feel with the last episode went. I thought it was good, but I feel like they almost like, we don't know what else to do. Like, how do we do this crazy, but we want to make it smart? And I felt they tried to go this more smart and rational approach,
and surprising in a sense. Like, I think
the shock value that we've seen with everything else, even when someone, like, we'll go back to last week again with Daenerys doing that turn that no one saw coming, even though it was foreshadowed. I mean,
for years.
Yeah, it was almost, there was so much shadowing in it. It was like the Independence Day, when the aliens come in, like there was that much shadow in it. But to me, we knew that, and I just saw those bits and pieces. That's what made it not feel as well. This season was good. It felt like a TV show versus before, where you felt like you were following the novel and you were getting that, just those details of that were coming from a book that you wouldn't get any other way. That's kind of,
I think that's, I mean, yes, there are things that perhaps could have been done differently in this season and last season, but at the same time, it is limited. Like, yes, they could have done a season 9, sure, but at that point, you're dragging out the inevitable, and you can only, like, I would have liked to see an episode where Dany is trying to quote unquote liberate these other places, and maybe start with Winterfell.
I would have loved an internal struggle, though. I would love to see the internal power struggle. I felt like she was just like, I'm good, fuck this, I'm bad. And there was no struggle. It was just like, oh, well, I flipped. And though you had that moment when she's sitting on the dragon after the bells have rung, you could tell she's going to do it the entire way. And I'm not saying that's her fault for giving off, because that's what they want her to do. They want her to portray the turn. They want everybody to feel that. But at the same time, too, you could see it on her face. You knew the moment she stopped, you go, oh, they're all dead. And I felt that way. As soon as I saw it, I go, oh, she's not stopping. And I think a lot of people felt that, even though everybody seemed to be so surprised about it. I just thought an internal struggle would have been great. I think seeing more Jon's fish out of water coming from Winterfell, and coming down to King's Landing, I thought, though, yes, he's been there before, and he'd been there towards the end of the episode, and he kind of played a role back there last year. I thought coming back this time, when he wasn't welcome, and things were a lot, the stakes were
much higher.
Yeah, because before it was, what's going to happen if we beat them? Now it's like, we've beat them, we've moved on, now we're here, and it's like, we don't know what to do, but then it really felt like, okay, we really don't know what to do. So how do we end this?
Well, like, one question that I had, and you can make an argument that it was fulfilled in some way, but
let's see.
The Lord of Light bringing Jon back, was that, all just so that he could, because in that overall battle, yes, he didn't do much. Granted, he was stuck for most of it in the Long Night, but I felt like there was no logical reason why he came back, other than just to bring people together, which he did do. But there's still some questions that, and I think it's maybe because the books aren't there.
I would love a Jon Snow series, because I feel like the parts that would follow this would be so big and so massive that I would follow his life, because I think it was so interesting. And we're to the point now where it's over and done with, and we didn't. I think you're right. His story arc didn't quite get the way that we wanted to, and you're right. If they revived him, I feel like it was just like, it was wasted. If he would have died again, I would have rather it had been permanent, because watching him go back, though I know that's kind of the way he started, and it's such a far callback. I think there's better ways. I think having him, be close to both the man he knew growing up, Ned Stark, and also the dad that he didn't know. I think that would have been a nice blend in kind of the middle versus just kind of, hey, we don't know what we're going to do. We're just going to call back to the original because that's the easiest thing to do, and that's what happened. It was just felt like there's this door right here. Let's just move you throughout. And I felt they took Tyrion's character serious, and I thought having him and his...
Oh, he stole this episode.
Yeah,
Peter Dinklage stole this entire episode, hands down.
He makes you feel... And let's go from the beginning of that episode, from the moment that you see Jaime's hand, and you see him uncover his family, and just hit the bricks against him.
He goes through a lot of emotion. He goes through anger. He goes through shame.
But the numbness walking through the castle, and he asks, John and Davos are standing there, and they go, "Do you want us? No,
you want to send men?
No, I'm good by myself." And I thought that was really interesting, but just that heartbreaking moment. And then I think if there was a moment to cheer, it was when he took the pin off
and just threw it down the stairs.
And I was like, "This is either when you. I mean, this is the moment. You know, if your character lives from this moment, he's gonna live the rest of the show. If he dies, he's gonna die right in this moment. There's no way around it."
Yeah.
And
he has an affinity for prisons at this point.
But I loved how they ended his character, though. I really do. I thought that was the most smart and brilliant way to do it, and I thought that was a brilliant tie. And that's why I say when you have down moments where you wish the moments would have been different with, like, say, Jon Snow or Daenerys, or you wanted to see them end differently, especially with Cersei, you want to see a different death. It was kind of nice on this end to see the other characters, the B characters, which I believe he's definitely an A character, but he spent his time as a B character, and he's kind of moved throughout. So you just see him as such an integral part of the show that watching his arc towards the end, I thought was fantastic. He makes you cry. He makes you feel, but you just go and you go, wow. Like the end scene when they're sitting and they're setting everything up, as like a democracy for the first time. I thought that was very interesting. Well, it wasn't. They shot down democracy, but his whole monologue, I thought, absolutely stole the show.
Well, one thing that this season didn't really have a lot of is that magical side. Like, kind of leading up, it hasn't been like thrown at your face magic, like Melisandre. The little things that she did, there wasn't a whole lot of the magic that kind of helps build that Game of Thrones world. Like, yes, Bran kind of disappeared.
They just relied on the dragon.
They did.
They relied on those two dragons until it was one, and then it was three. Or when we got all three on screen at once, then it went down to one. And I get it. I do.
And as far as the Drogon melting the Iron Throne, I thought it was a very interesting moment, because watching it a second time, I realized, obviously dragons are highly intelligent. So, and I imagine there's some type of small connection in some way, whether it be from Dany in reference to Jon or a connection to Jon because he's a Targaryen. But Drogon understands that it wasn't Jon's fault. Yes, he may have killed her, but it was the throne that overall drove her mad.
And he wanted to destroy the throne.
And what better way to end the Game of Thrones than to end the throne?
That would have been a better final scene. You know what I mean? I would have rather left it on there than just having him go up, because I thought that was a bunch of waste of time. But then again, with a show like this where they want it to be an hour and a half and they want to push that time because they want to make it spectacular, I felt like you just kind of wasted, that little bit. They just wasted a good part of that episode. I like seeing Tyrion run, or walk through the city and kind of see that. And I like
contemplate
and I liked seeing. Okay, cool. We know Jaime and them are dead. And then I liked seeing where Dany went. But then I liked kind of seeing where Jon went. But I liked seeing where other characters like Davos went. I also liked seeing so many other. I know, it's so bad. My bad. My phone's just going crazy. No, but there's just all those B characters I liked seeing wrapped up. I don't know. When it comes to... Let's put it this way. Let me give you an ultimatum, because I know you have two favorite shows, or you have two shows that you highly like. This one that we watched together, and also Sons of Anarchy. Now, Sons, I thought was more poetic, but I don't believe really gave as much justice as I really wanted to throughout the show, and I thought it felt a lot. Him, arms crossed going into the semi. perfect. I can live with that. I just thought they ended it kind of like the way they always do it, just like this time you're not getting out, and it was the same ploy that we always had. But I still love Sons of Anarchy, but I had my issues with it as well too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then the thing with Sons is
where do you rank those in between? Like at the end of the day, where are you going to put Game of Thrones in terms of your shows, the shows that you watch, not all time what people think. Out of the shows that you watch, because you have a ton of good ones that are in there as well too. Where do you put this Game of Thrones?
I think it's difficult to fully be able to put it into place because yes, I love Supernatural. Yes, I love The Flash.
No, but I'm talking like in shows that have ended. No, I'm not talking what might happen. Like say Arrow ends next year. I'm talking
like shows that have ended.
Yeah, like How I Met Your Mother. We know you didn't like, and we know with. While we're talking about Game of Thrones now, there's I rank it as it's not the worst. Is it in my top 10? Probably not, but is it somewhere where it's going to be down the bottom? To me, I like the show so much that the end of this series or this telling of it doesn't ruin it, because my argument is people say the show's so long. Now you know what happens. Now you can go and spot everything, and I think that makes that second watch so much more. I think it's going to make a second watch for a lot of people more enjoyable. So Game of Thrones isn't over, and nor is it going to be over. I think it's another one of those where we're going to see it for the next 5-10 years because people are going to want to see it. We're going to get spin-offs, but a show like this doesn't go away very easily. And Breaking Bad, it took years for it to go away, and it's still, as soon as someone talks about it, it arises
lights
again.
up.
Just like when they're making the movie.
Yeah,
and I'm excited. Once Jesse Pinkman, a.k.a., once he's done in the Westworld world, which, by the way, that trailer looks
awesome
great.
And crazy, and I have no idea what's going on.
We will break that down another day because I still have not finished all of season 2. I obviously, I know more things happen, and we're past, I think I'm 5 or 6 episodes in, so we're past the point of, like, the chaos that's already happened. But I'm not quite there to where that point is, but I like seeing that whole other world that's out there. I thought that was crazy. But
as far as Game of Thrones finale, I'd put it in my top 10. I don't know where it would sit in that top 10, but I think as far as endings go, it makes sense that they finally came up with some type of democratic system to appoint instead of, like Tyrion said, sons of kings are terrible. And I think it would make sense going forward for Bran to train the next king as a three-eyed raven. Because when it comes down to it, Bran would make the best king because, one, he's not in it for the power.
No.
He's in it for the realm. He's in it for the history. He knows the history. He knows what to do, what not to do, what has and hasn't worked. And he's there.
How come you can't find someone like that today?
Right? No. Jesus.
Someone who cares about the history and just cares about making the right. That's what I loved about him. And though he had his smart ass comment where
why do you think I came here?
Because we pushed you here, which is my favorite meme. Because we fucking pushed you here in the wheelchair. Like, I thought that was hilarious. But no, I get it. I mean, it has its problems, but I respect the show a lot as a top 10. And then this is going to be very unpopular, and I don't care. I was a huge Entourage fan. I know people don't like it. You can call it Sex in the City for guys. I don't care. I thought it had more of a fan service ending than I thought this did, and that's just a shitty HBO show. You know what I mean? Though it ran as many seasons and everything like that, to me, with what they've done, I liked it, but it was, I don't know. It's if you were to have walked into Endgame and gotten, you were disappointed by it, which it was very hard for people to have done, but it's one of those where it's, I didn't walk away and go, man, because
it's hard to end something that has become basically part of people's lives. Like
for 10 years, it's like a decade, but then again, you have that with Supernatural too. That's been going on even longer.
Yeah,
and just shows like that in general. I mean, you can go old people style and go like NCIS if you want to go like shows that have run.
NCIS is still fucking going too.
But every demographic has that certain show. Mm-hmm. Superhero shows are still so very new that we haven't got anything to that point yet. Yeah, we had Smallville, but I'm talking before the resurgence where everything has to be so by the book, has to be from this comic book or this writer or this or that and the other thing, and people can't enjoy anything anymore. That's why when I came into this, I just watched the episodes. I watched them twice. I watched them with, I watched them once. Watched them the day that we would do a podcast, behind the scenes here.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it because it took 2 or 3 episodes. I was lost for the first 2 or 3 episodes. And those last 3 episodes, I knew everybody and I knew everything the way it was going. But that's what happens. People who say, well, I didn't watch any other show, or I haven't watched it in a while. Like I have. If you pay attention to the episode, they give you everything that you still need. The show is still good. So no matter if
you just have to pay attention.
Yeah. I mean, if you've never watched it and you watch season 8, you'd be lost. But if you've watched it only once, they do a really good job of trying to call back. Now, are there deep cuts? Yes. I will give Game of Thrones that credit. They are the most deep cut show ever because they were the one that brought back more hardcore things than like a Marvel movie or a comic movie.
They really set...
We're calling stuff back from episode 2.
They really set the decade for TV, in that sense.
And to me, in that way, they've done their job and their difference, and that's what makes it good. Whether or not not you and I, but the people together liked it or didn't like it, doesn't mean one thing or not to me, because they've done their job. You talked about it. You want to go back and rewatch it. You still watched it the first time. That's all that matters. They got you talking, and that's what makes this successful. Yeah,
and it's hard to really do a finale that everybody's gonna like, because a finale in itself is the end of something, and in doing that, you're gonna have people who are mad because one, especially in something like this where there was so much theorizing before the season even began, to come down to Jon goes north of the wall, Bran becomes king. These are things that people weren't expecting, and they were really, you spent 8 seasons, almost 10 years with Daenerys, and then she makes that turn, and just because people don't like it, they don't think that it's part of her character.
But that's the thing is, everybody changes. You and I have changed. You and I have been friends for 10 years, and we've changed a lot. People change in 10 years. But there was so much foreshadowing that this was going to happen. This wasn't a left field. This wasn't even close. If you would have paid any attention that more people do, instead of being pissed off online with, not you, but people are so busy wanting to be pissed off about the show. If you look, the foreshadowing was there with her turn, and we could see everything that Jon wanted to do. And though it didn't turn out, he did what he said he was going to do, or what we thought was going to happen. In theorizing, everything happened because we didn't think of the fallout, and that's the way it happened. That's the way it happened. So overall, I'm happy with Game of Thrones. I'm glad we got to stick along with it, for as long as we did.
I think for what we got, it was satisfying enough. Martin said that it was going to be bittersweet, and that's exactly how I felt. I wasn't mad that Bran got on the throne.
No, I was actually very excited.
I wasn't mad that Sansa's like, well, the North is going to be its own independent kingdom. It was a little weird when he's like, ruler of the 6 kingdoms, and he just looks over at Sansa, and it's like, yes, no finale is going to hit everybody's expectations, but that's compromise.
I mean, I think it compromised well, and I think, though the fans may not have liked it, and there's, 1 million signatures to get it rechanged, we're rewatching it again. I still enjoyed it. I will continue to enjoy it, and
it's still Game of Thrones.
It's still Game of Thrones. It's still HBO. HBO doesn't, I don't shy away from them as a network. They've proven to do good things, and like right now, we're currently still watching Chernobyl, which I will watch on my plane ride this week.
Yeah.
But that's another one of those where they're doing good things still. Barry's out there and being very successful, and that's a great show.
That just ended as well, the same Sunday.
There's so many great things going on. So we've got a lot to look forward to, but I'm glad we got to sit down and do this and have about a half an hour podcast that I thought was more fun than
doing it over Skype.
Yeah, doing it so much more over Skype. So
now I have to see your actual face.
I know.
Your beautiful face.
Oh, pardon me.
Well, I'll be back down hopefully sometime in August, so we can do something then too.
Absolutely. So I would love that, and then that way we can do more, because we've got some movies that are still coming out. I mean, we're right in the middle of the summer run. I would like to see Detective Pikachu.
I had it spoiled for me.
I haven't, so don't say anything. Well, that doesn't surprise me.
And it's not like I could be like, shut the fuck up, kid.
But we've got a lot planned, so we just wanted to make sure. I think hopefully this sounds good and everything came out great. But
if it doesn't, well, we'll return to Skype next week.
You'll never hear it. You'll never hear the light of day of this. So, but I had a great time.
I did too.
So we'll get back to our regular scheduled program next week. I think we're going to be talking. Well, in this Memorial Day weekend,
John Wick and
John Wick. I would like to talk. We've lost track of
Avengers,
Twilight Zone. I mean, there's a couple things that are just around in our current lives that we haven't got a chance to really talk about. So
and so much going on.
I think next week's going to be our catch-up episode. I think we're going to just kind of lay in, be prepared because we're going to have it's going to be just after Memorial Day. I'd like to make a push for some of the summer movies, but for right now, I think we're done with Game of Thrones. And we have to move on in the world. You have to move on.
With that being said, I am B. Frank.
And I'm Travis.
And we are worth the admission.
See you next week. Take care.